Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you to everyone who has joined us from all over the world. It's so nice to see so many people here. Cool. So, and also want to welcome our speaker, Arcana, Siddhi, Prabhu. It's so wonderful to have, such senior Vaishnavis here with us, sharing Krishna consciousness with us and, being able to relate with each and every one of us. So yeah, I'll just read you guys her bio and then we'll get straight into this wonderful talk. So she's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and she joined the movement in 1976 while in graduate school. She lived and served in the Potomac, Maryland temple for 12 years. Her main service was book distribution. Wow, that's amazing. After moving out of the temple, she finished a master's degree and worked in a mental health clinic for 14 years, counseling both children and adults, specializing in family and couples therapy. She's currently living in a rural community with her husband. She's working in private practice, counseling individuals, couples, and families. She and her husband are members of the Grihasta Vision team. She has written and delivered a number of seminars on personal growth to enhance a devotee's spiritual progress, and she has written over 30 articles for Back to Godhead magazine. She's one of the authors to the book Heart and Soul Connection, a devotional guide to marriage, service, and love. This past year, she wrote and published Vaishnav Marriage Challenge, shedding light on Lord Chaitanya's formula for loving, healthy relationships. Both of these books are available on Amazon. And yeah, she has a BS in psychology and a master's in clinical social work. I'll just want to add a little personal note that I really appreciate about Prabhu is that, she's just a living example of, Prabhupada's instruction to preach to the intellectual class of society. And, here she is, and she's shedding, and sharing Krishna consciousness in such a wonderful way. Can you just imagine how many people with mental health disorders and challenges are benefiting from her association and her, wonderful work? So my obeisances goes out to Mataji, and I'll hand over to her now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Tara. Hare Krishna, and welcome to all of you that have joined on the Zoom call. It's really amazing that there's been such an overwhelming response to this Vaishnavi retreat, and it really shows both the need and the desire to have women, for women to have women association, and how special that is. And it was just, I would say maybe a month ago that I was really reflecting on how some of the traveling that I got to do a few years ago. And one of the places that I got to travel to was South Africa. I was there in 2009 with Gary Raj Maharaj and my husband, and I went there to help facilitate a japa retreat in the Drakensberg Mountains and a couples retreat in Durban. And that was just a totally awesome, transformative trip that we had. And unfortunately, I think that was the last time I flew. I really didn't do so well in all that travel, international travel anymore. And I realized that I would pretty much not be doing that anymore. I guess you could say I'm kind of a combination between the Princess and the Pea and Goldilocks. Everything has to be just right. And otherwise, it just doesn't work for me anymore. And I'm grateful that Krishna allowed me to live in an ashram for 12 years when I was younger, and I had that experience and could endure cold water and things that my body just wouldn't be able to deal with very well anymore. So I was very grateful for all the travel I got to do, but I was missing all the teaching opportunities. And in the last couple of months, Krishna's sent so many opportunities to, again, be able to be in arenas of teaching. And one of the reasons that I like to teach so much is, of course, to share whatever little bit of knowledge and realizations that I have that could help you all. But it's also a very selfish thing because I get so much from delving deeper into topics. And when you teach something, you really have to, a lot of questions come up in your mind, and you have to refine it, and you really have to know your subject better. So I always come away from these experiences feeling very happy that I've done them, even though I have to say it's a little out of my comfort zone to come on and be the center of attention, or the center, and all the fears that go with that. I guess I've had those anxiety dreams over the years of, getting up in front of a audience, and, my sari comes off, and, it's just like all the things that you could just, imagine that could go wrong. And now with the technology, what if my computer blacks out, which it has done before. So in case that happens, I will be back, but just to alert people of that. So we could say that, so there is the situation with this coronavirus could, for a lot of us, we're finding the silver lining and seeing how it's bringing us together, giving us opportunities to associate with people from all over the world that we never would have met. And so we could call it the Karuna virus, the mercy virus coming from Krishna. Ultimately, he is behind it all. He's the cause of all causes. And so we know ultimately it's for the highest good of everyone. So we'll embrace that thought, and just really happy to be here. And I pray that I can say something today or give you something that will benefit your practice and your spiritual journey. So that's my intention. And I'm going to start with a PowerPoint and hope that it all goes well. This is the part of the technology that I always hold my breath with. Let's see. Okay, so today's PowerPoint and the topic that I want to share with you all is humility, the path of greatest resistance. And this is a practical strategies to overcome our struggle to reach steady devotion. So in this short PowerPoint, we're going to explore why it's so hard to be humble, and how we can bring some simple practices into our life that will help us overcome this resistance. And by the end of this PowerPoint, I'm going to have all of you design a 30-day humility practice plan that you're going to share in small breakout groups. So we're going to really pray that that all goes well. So let's start looking at where the resistance to humility really comes from. So our conditioning, it's like software for a computer. Now, in case there's any software engineers or computer programmers with us today, this is an analogy from someone who was born in the 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We have someone to mute that. Okay. Okay, in case there's any software engineers or computer programmers who are on the call today, this is an analogy written by someone who was born in the early 1950s. That's before even color television. So, so please have some compassion on me if it's not exactly perfect. So to expand this analogy a little bit, we could compare the hard drive of our computer to the physical body, and the software to our conditioning of our psychic subtle body. And our conditioning in this lifetime, it's an accumulation of impressions from just countless numbers of lifetimes in the material realm. So our conditioning is how we respond at every moment to what's happening both internally and externally. And most of us who have taken birth at this time, with the exception of maybe a few saints and sages, and of course our children who are like descendants of the demigods, we do have a built-in anti-humility software program. I'm going to say that again. Most of us come into this life with an anti-humility software package, and it's running since birth. So we're going to look at what that actually looks like. So the anti-humility software, we're going to look at the standard package, and we're going to look at the features of the standard package. And in case you wonder where the list that we're going to look at comes from, it's from my own introspection of things that I do that are clearly the antithesis of humility. And there's a saying that we teach what we most need to learn. So I can certainly attest to that. So some of these things may apply to you or they may not. And you might have something that you could add to the list, and please do that for yourself. I'm not going to ask anybody to raise your hand if you can relate to these features. But just for your own personal growth, you can write down the ones that really resonate with you. Nothing that you would need to share with anybody else. So, trouble accepting no for an answer. That comes online probably when we're about 2. The need to be right most of the time. Thinking our perspective is the absolute objective reality. Thinking we're the center of the universe. That comes online at birth. Thinking that we're the controller, the enjoyer, the dearmost friend. Defensive when our flaws are pointed out. Me first. That comes on at birth. Impatient. Lack of respect for differences, hard to take responsibility for mistakes, blaming, and victim mentality. So this victim mentality is particularly challenging. The first seminar I ever gave was in the first women's retreat, which was back in the early 1990s in Alachua, Florida. And the name of the seminar I did with a friend of mine, Mandrani, she's my god sister also, and we did this together. It was called From Victim to Victor. And it was about healing resentments that keep us stuck in our lives. And victim mentality is one of the things that will keep us totally stuck, because everything's happening outside of ourselves. We're seeing the problem as being out there. We're not taking any personal responsibility. And so therefore you can't grow, you can't change. And so it's really probably one of all of these things kind of add up to victim mentality. So these are the attitudes that make up the standard package of this anti-humility software. So we're going to look at what can we do about it. Are we going to remain victims and allow this software to control our lives? Or are we really going to look at ways to change our angle of vision? So how to change our software. So this is a little cartoon, the life of a software engineer. He's looking at his slate and going, clean slate, solid foundation. This time I'm going to build it right. And then much later, he's created something that looks exactly like what he just torn down. And he goes, oh my, I've done it again, haven't I? So we are all architects of our own destiny. And Sigmund Freud, although an atheist, he had amazing insights into the psychology of human beings. And he identified a pattern of behavior called the repetition compulsion. And it's a drive to repeat the same behaviors over and over again. So doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition for insanity. So how can we extricate ourselves from this repetition compulsion? So have you ever heard anyone say, or maybe have you ever said yourself, that this is just the way I am? In other words, I'm not really interested in changing my conditioning, or I don't really have the energy, or I don't believe I really can change. Viktor Frankl was a German psychiatrist who spent 5 years in Auschwitz in a concentration camp, and really an amazing personality that he kept during the most horrific conditions and time of his life. He was able to keep a positive mental attitude, and he was able to see the situation very, very theistically, and always understanding that this was an opportunity for him to become the very best version of himself that he could. And this is how transformation comes about. This quote is really, it's a beautiful quote, and I think something that devotees could, if we lived by this, we would prosper a lot. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So we feel the compulsion of our conditioning all the time. And this is telling us that if we just take a moment, if we just pause to think, to become more conscious about the choices that we make, that we can become a healthier, happier person. And this is how we grow both emotionally and spiritually. So we're talking about developing new emotional habits. So years ago, in the science of mind, okay, technology, TJ. So years ago in the science mind, it was thought that personality was a very rigid and static thing. But in recent years, there's an understanding of something called neuroplasticity. And that's the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural pathways, connections throughout life. This is really good news that supports the idea that emotional habits can be changed. And all we need is the willingness and the motivation. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks the question to Krishna. He says, the mind is more difficult than the wind to control. How is it possible? I just don't understand how it's possible to control my mind. And Krishna agreed with him. He didn't disagree, but he said, it can be done, but with practice and detachment. So this is really a profound insight on how we can change our software. Detachment and practice. Oftentimes we try to change our behavior because we think I should change it. But we fail to address that our attachments to the old behavior may be actually getting in the way. Sometimes it just feels we're attached to it because it just feels familiar. Or there's some perceived secondary gain from the old behavior. So if you start a practice plan of humility and you feel a lot of resistance to it, it's most likely some attachment that needs to be addressed. And that's just something I'm throwing out there because I'm really hoping that all of you will take that away with you after today's session to practice these things for the next 30 days. And if you are feeling that resistance, you'll delve a little deeper into where the attachments are. So ego. Ego is not a negative thing. We could say we don't want to extinguish our ego or to get rid of it, but rather our process in bhakti is about transforming the ego. And what we want to do is we want to transform our ego from a taking, exploiting ego into a giving and serving ego. So there's a little saying that a tiger will look at a young girl, and what will the tiger see? Something good to eat. And a young man may look at a young girl and he'll be thinking, somebody to enjoy with. Whereas the sadhu or saintly person will look at a young girl and he'll think, how can I help this young girl become a devotee and give her to Krishna? So the first thing, our bhakti, sadhana bhakti, we're practicing how to love. We're practicing humility. We're practicing faith. So sometimes it feels like we're swimming upstream because for so many lifetimes, we've been immersed in being on the take. What's in it for me mentality. So every day we have to set an intention to serve the Vaishnavas in a humble state of mind, because again, it's going against this anti-humility software program. So humility isn't low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is characterized by a lack of confidence, feeling badly about ourselves. People with low self-esteem often feel unlovable, awkward, incompetent. They have a very fragile sense of self and they can be easily wounded. Humility is about resilience. The more humility, the less we personalize the things people say or do to us. So it's very different. I like this little saying by Ken Blanchard that humility does not mean that you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. So selflessness. So humility means confidence. And almost any offering or homage ever written to Srila Prabhupada showcases this quality of his humility. He never put himself in the center, always Krishna and his guru. He never took credit for anything that he did. He always gave credit to his spiritual master and to Krishna. And when we don't seek to be in the center, Krishna puts us in the center by giving us so much empowerment. We saw that from Srila Prabhupada. When he got on the boat to cross the Atlantic Ocean, he received an empowerment, Shaktivesh, became a Shaktivesh, and the empowerment from Lord Nityananda. So Srila Prabhupada was confident, he was bold, tenacious, he was all of these things, and it was all for serving and pleasing his spiritual master in Krishna. So he's giving us the example to follow. Acharya teaches by his example, and he helps, and we should aspire to become the best versions of ourselves also. And he is showing us the way. So humility means letting go and letting Krishna. So I'm not the doer, I'm not the controller, I'm not the enjoyer. Those are all Krishna's positions. And I'm not the dearmost friend of anyone. And when we align ourselves with the one that possesses all of these qualities, we are completely taken care of, we're empowered, and then we can be free of anxiety and fear in this lifetime. So now we're going to look at several slides that really are going to give us some practical practices of humility that we can incorporate into our lives. So humility starts with controlling the tongue. So our devotional life begins with engaging the senses in Krishna's service. We know of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious, it's the most difficult to control. So we engage the senses in two very powerful practices: chanting and taking prasadam, and of course, speaking philosophy, sharing with others also, but the main practices are japa and prasadam. And our japa is the foundation of our spiritual life. So the next practical thing to look at is to seek first to understand and then be understood. So the yoga of listening, being present and putting aside our own agenda. And generally when we speak to be understood first. And when both parties are coming together in communication with that intention, we can see why things probably don't go so well. And often when we do listen, we only listen partially. And we're more interested in formulating our own response and deeply trying to understand where the other person's coming from. So we're putting aside all of our distractions, cell phones, computers, giving our full attention with mind and body, listening to fully understand the other person. And if you become a good listener, you'll become a very broad-minded person, and you'll be able to hold differences without feeling threatened, all of which will nurture your humility. Admitting our mistakes and making amends. So this is a really hard thing to do. But when we learn to be able to do this, it is a very liberating thing. And I think a lot of us have grown up in families that perfection was, it was demanded almost. And so we learn to try to cover our mistakes and not admit our shortcomings. So this is something for all of us to practice. This is a little formula for being able to admit that we've made a mistake, identify our mistake, communicate in our understanding of why it's wrong to do or say what we just did, and then communicate our intentions to prove our future actions. So it's a three-part piece of being able to admit mistakes. So it would look like something like this. I'm sorry I didn't call you at the time we had agreed upon. It was wrong for me to be inconsiderate of your time and have you worry about me. And from now on, I'll set an alarm on my phone so I'll remember for sure. So this is something that if after this session, if you have some time to just maybe think about something that in the recent past that you might have done or said to someone you care about, and you hadn't really been able to have closure on it. And you can use this little three-part formula for making amends. So along with being able to admit our mistakes is practicing forgiveness. So we're going to be on one side or the other on this one. If the one who made the mistake or the one that has to forgive the other one. So the more that we're able to look at our own human conditioning and able to accept our own limitations and faults, the more we can be forgiving, because we will see that almost everything horrible and horrendous that goes on in the world, that we have actually there's the capabilities of coming to that place, or we've done those things in past lives in some way or another. So the more that we're able to get in touch with that, and it doesn't mean that in situations of abuse that forgiveness doesn't mean that we forget and allow ourselves to be mistreated, but it means that we're able to let go of the anger and the resentment that we feel. And of course, always, to use proper boundaries in the future with a person like that. But the forgiveness piece, it frees us up so much. Otherwise, we stay in that victim mentality. So practicing the austerities of speech. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 17, chapter 15th verse, there are some austerities of speech. And becoming more conscious. So much of our behavior runs on an unconscious habit trajectory every day. It's just, we don't really think so much about what we say or do. We're just kind of going on automatic pilot. So if we can become more conscious and we can take a little time between the stimulus and the response to really think about what we're doing and saying, we can make a tremendous amount of progress. So in 1715, we want to look at our speech before speaking to ask ourselves some internal questions. Is it true what I'm going to say? And a lot of the things we'll just eliminate right there because we don't know if it's true or not. A lot of the things we're hearing now about the COVID-19, we don't really know, and yet we go and we repeat it, and it really has we don't really have a basis for it. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it beneficial? If you ask yourselves, and what is my intention for speaking? If you ask yourselves those questions, a lot of the things that you might say in the day, you're going to eliminate from your repertoire. We want our speech to be true, kind, and beneficial. And our intention for speaking it should be coming from a place of love and kindness and compassion. Okay, this is a Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur paraphrased a verse from the Bible from Matthew 7:3. And he said, don't point out a splinter in someone else's eye when you have a log in your own eye. So we can fall prey to projecting our own faults onto others. It's a strategy to avoid looking at our own shortcomings. And it's not a very healthy, or it's certainly not going to help us in our spiritual progress. So fault finding is one of the standard features of this anti-humility software package. And fault finding begets fault finding. So the more that we do it, the more we're going to want to do it, and the more we will do it. And we can see how it could really set ourselves up for making aparads. Ramachandra Puri, the character here in this picture with Lord Chaitanya, he was so proficient at finding fault that he invented imaginary faults to criticize Lord Chaitanya. He saw some ants crawling on the dirt floor. Of course, there's ants always crawling on dirt floors, but he used that to say that Lord Chaitanya was a sense enjoyer and eating sweets as a sannyasi, and that was showing that he wasn't really a real sannyasi. So that's how bad things can get. He is our example of what not to do. So here's a little idea of how to work on fault finding. Try a fault finding fast for a few days, even for a day. And you could put a rubber band on your hand, and every time you're thinking to say something, you snap the rubber band to not say it, and see how long you can go without actually coming out with something that would be fault finding. It's really, when you try this little exercise, it'll get you in touch with just how much, I'm speaking from experience here, how much that things that come out are of a fault-finding nature. So, and if we can't get control of our fault-finding, well, I can tell you from the experience also that Krishna just might help us. Empathy training. So it's a little cartoon here. How would you like it if the mouse did that to you? So I can think of countless examples of how Krishna has helped me over the years to curb fault-finding and judgmental attitudes. The first time I remember is when I was a newer devotee and I was living in the ashram, and one of my god sisters' health was really not, she was quite compromised in her health, and she couldn't make it to Mangal Artik a lot of the time. So in my mind, she could be doing better, and she just wasn't sincere enough. So I guess it wouldn't be too hard to guess what happened to me after that. So shortly thereafter, I had some really pretty severe health issues that I struggled with, and I didn't go to Mangal Artik every day either. So I have many examples I could share, but due to our time limit, I won't go into them. But it is something just for everyone to reflect on, because sometimes we're not maybe aware of the connection of how Krishna might be teaching us a lesson through things that happen to us. But the more we can tune into that, the more helpful it will be for us. So welcome feedback from others. So this is a picture of Duryodhana, who was the antagonist of the Mahabharata. And I would say he had an upgraded anti-humility software with lots of add-ons. There's a famous story where Krishna asked Yudhisthira to find someone less than himself and bring him back to Krishna. And he asked Duryodhana to go and find someone greater than himself. So they both came back empty-handed, as the story goes. And Yudhisthira said, well, I thought I found someone to bring back. There was a man drawing water from a well on a Kadasi. And then I realized it was for his horse. So I couldn't find anyone lower than myself, so I'm bringing myself. And of course, Duryodhana, he obviously didn't think anybody was greater than him, so he brought himself back. So we want to be able to welcome feedback with gratitude. We want to be generous with your interpretation of the motives that other people have and accept that they're really trying to help us to be the best person we can be. When Ramachandra Puri was criticizing Lord Chaitanya and his devotees complained, Lord Chaitanya said, why are you finding fault with them? He's just looking out for my best interest. So that's an example of being very generous with your interpretation about somebody's feedback. And in general, in marriages and whatnot, we have to think that there's good intention in our partner's feedback that they're giving us. In fact, they're probably the only people that really care enough to share some of the things about us that we should know about. And in a marriage situation, defensiveness is considered one of the 4 horsemen of marriage apocalypse. We don't benefit from that, and it really does hurt our relationships. So Krishna isn't done with me yet. So we're all works in progress. A paraphrase from Bhaktivinoda Thakur of a verse of the 11th canto is, true beauty is knowing who we are and acting accordingly. So it's glorious to be on the path. And we don't criticize a mango for being green. And we don't criticize a 3-year-old for not walking. So we shouldn't criticize someone in Anishta Bhajana Kriya, even if it's ourselves. Anishta Bhajana Kriya means the unsteady performance of devotional service. It's only time that's really separating us. And there are things we can do to speed up the process. So if you put a mango in the sun, it's going to ripen faster than a mango that's in the shade. So we want to stay in the sun of good association and take advantage of classes and retreats like this one, so we can ripen faster. So we want to remove the negative and add positive things, removing negative impressions and replacing them with positive impressions within the context of bhakti. Prabhupada used an example that I always like about if you have a cup of ink and you pour a continuous stream of milk into a cup of ink, at some point all of the ink will be removed and you're just going to have a cup of pure white milk. So intentions and prayer and affirmations. Before going to sleep at night, setting an intention for the next day. My dear Lord, may I wake up tomorrow feeling enthusiastic to chant your holy name and to embrace the opportunities that you send to me to practice humility. And to keep, this is something I have found to be very, very helpful for myself, is keeping a japa humility journal. What successes did I have today choosing humility over my conditioned response? Where did I give in to my conditioning? And if I could do it over, what would I do differently? And to rate the quality of your japa for the day. And do I see a correlation between my japa and the quality of my day? Because I think a lot of times we don't realize how much japa really can improve our consciousness throughout the whole day. and we might put it on the back burner, or we'll not make it a priority in our lives. So the more that we're able to see this connection, this correlation, the more serious we'll become about our practices. And it takes humility to be introspective. It takes humility to be able to admit our shortcomings, even to ourselves. But that's the place we all need to start. So the last thing on here, I'm going to just show up on the screen, is a little review. Because what I'm going to have you all do after this is to take, hopefully everyone here that's on the call has access to a pen and a piece of paper, so that you can write a practice humility plan for the next 30 days. And you can base it on these things that we talked about today, or if you have something else that you have thought about that I didn't cover, to put it into your humility practice plan. So seek first to understand, and then to be understood. Admit mistakes, what I did wrong, why it was wrong, and how I will do it better in the future. Practice forgiving others. Practice the austerities of speech. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it beneficial? Welcome feedback from others with gratitude. Curb fault finding and negativity. A fault finding fast might be a way to start. Prayers and affirmations to develop more humility. Work on improving japa, and keep a japa humility journal. So what I'm going to have you all do now for the next, say, 7 minutes or so, is to take this time to, and this should be for anyone who's watching out there, if you're on Facebook, or that you take the time also to write a plan for the next 30 days of things that you're going to do to really work on going deeper with your humility. And then after that, we're going to do a breakout session, and that's going to be about 7 to 10 minutes long. And during that session, because other people that aren't in the Zoom session won't be able to participate, obviously, in that, I'm going to read a little bit from a booklet that I just published called Vaishnav Marriage Challenge. And I'm going to read from the chapter on humility, and pretty much where I've taken some of the ideas for this PowerPoint from. All right, so I'm going to stop the share. Come back to you all. I hope that you were able to get something from that PowerPoint. It was useful, something that you'll be able to write your humility practice plan from. And so I'm going to put on a timer, and what we'll do is just go ahead and write for the next 7 minutes or so, and then I'll check in with everyone to see if they're done. So we have, it's 1:43 now, so we'll say 1:45, 50, 1:50.
Hare Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare, Hare.
Okay, so we need to finish up the writing exercise. Let's see here. So Tara, I don't see a way, there's not a way for me to do the breakouts on here. Do you have that on your screen?
Let me check with the host. Perhaps they have it.
And if not, we'll just have maybe a few people share.
I do
Okay.
have a breakout option.
That's not showing up for whatever reason. I would say let's just go on without it. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the plan was they have this cool little feature on Zoom where it lets you break out into groups of 5 or 6, 7 people, and you go in. I don't know where everybody goes, but they just seem to disappear all over the place into these little cute little groups. And such a nice thing for women to do, especially. We love to share in smaller groups. So I'm not sure why that is not available on here. So what we're going to do instead, Tara, I'll let you, maybe call on some people. Would anybody be willing to share their practice plan with the group? Yes, Tara.
There is a way to do it. The host can do it.
Okay.
Rita can do it for us.
Okay, so she can, are you all up for that? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Rita, have her do it, make groups of 5 or 20 groups. 'Cause how many people? Yeah, make 20 groups.
Okay.
And we'll stay in those for about 7 minutes or so, and then bring everybody back. And during that time, I'm going to read a little bit from this booklet to the people that are out in the on the Facebook, and hopefully whet your appetite to get the booklet and do the practices in here as for your. Anyway, we'll try it.
Okay, I'm about to open all rooms.
Okay, just make sure I don't go into any of the rooms. Breakout. I think it might be trying to put me into a room too. Okay.
Cool. Looks like most people are going in.
Okay. It's really mystical. Down to the end.
I'm just seeing our participants drop, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm sure they're going to have a movie about it, you know. Participants disappear on Zoom call, you know, never found again.
Yeah, but I'm happy we could figure this thing out.
Yeah, great.
It's actually really nice. I mean, lecturers must love it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's really, it's so nice if you want to do like more of a seminar kind of feel to it, not just presentations.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to read a little bit from this book, Vaishnav Marriage Challenge. It's shedding light on Lord Chaitanya's formula for loving, healthy heart and soul connections. And this is a book that I published a few months back. It's already been being translated into Russian and Italian right now. So that's exciting. And also, this is another book that I wanted to showcase. This is Heart and Soul Connection. This is a book that all of us that are participants on the Grihastha Vision team contributed chapters to. I have a chapter in here on Krishna economics. It's a beautiful book. It has just about every subject that comes up in marriage, and we put a lot into it. And they're both on Amazon and our Vaishnav. We have our VaishnavFamilyResources.org website, which I would invite everyone to stop by and take a look at. We have lots of articles and resources on that page for relationships. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit of this while people are in there. It seems like some people are still out. Tara, what's that?
Yeah, it does seem perhaps they didn't enter the group. Maybe they want to hear your book.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, or they're just, we have the introverts of the world that prefer not to get into sharing groups, so that's fine. Okay, humility means to listen and understand our spouse's heart. So that was one of the points that we had in the PowerPoint. One of the most important life skills we can learn is how to listen. Generally, when we think of communication, we think about getting our points across in a clear and succinct way. While this is important, let's see, where did I go? An equally important and often more difficult skill is listening. Often we can listen superficially with the goal of skimming the main points from the speaker's words. We can be multitasking and still listen in this way. We can also be thinking about our response or mentally writing our grocery list while the other person is speaking. Casual listening may be practical in several situations, such as getting the kids off to school or cooking dinner. It can become a problem when we use this style of listening for much more complex and serious conversations. In such exchanges, one or both partners can feel misunderstood and undervalued. This can lead to feelings of disconnection and resentment. Serious conversations require being fully present. We communicate our intention to be fully present by removing distractions such as cell phones and computers from our visual and auditory space. This action shows the other person, you are important to me. I care about your feelings and want to understand you. How does this kind of listening exemplify humility? Humility isn't threatened by different perceptions and ways of approaching the world. A humble state of mind doesn't need to be right or to prove anything to others. And then humility isn't low self-esteem. We had a PowerPoint slide on that. We often stereotype a humble person to be soft-spoken, reticent, shy person with slumped shoulders and downcast eyes. My first roommate in college fit this description, and I was certain she was going to be an easy, self-effacing, friendly person. After a short period of time, I realized how the stereotype didn't hold true. I was completely taken off guard when she screamed at me for making too much noise when I got up early in the morning to use the bathroom. Not wanting to disturb her, I avoided turning on the light and tiptoed past her bed. Unfortunately for me, I tripped over the notebook she had left on the floor. I caught myself from falling and she woke up. I apologized and she responded with a litany of horrible things I had done to ruin her first week in college. What I learned about Casey was that she had very low self-esteem. She had grown up in an abusive home and was often in the crossfire of her parents' fights. She avoided her feelings by projecting her negative thoughts onto others and by blaming. In her reality, the problems existed in others around her. I became her scapegoat. Halfway into the semester, I realized how much I was being negatively affected by her unresolved issues, and I requested a room transfer. In her case, as with many others, low self-esteem certainly didn't equal humility. Humility means needing less validation from others. Confidence and humility are directly correlated with each other. When I feel good about myself, I need less external validation to support myself. True confidence comes from feeling connected with divinity. Within that connection, we feel small in comparison with the greatness of the Lord, yet we feel significant because we are his part and parcel, and because he is using us as an instrument of his mercy within this world. We feel confident of the Lord's protection and shelter in all situations. And the cowherd boys stood awestruck in front of the gaping mouth of the giant snake who was ready to swallow them all. They courageously decided to enter that mouth. They reasoned that even if it was a demon, surely Krishna would protect them and save them. All the residents of Vrindavan were absorbed in thoughts about Krishna. They don't care or think about themselves except for how to give pleasure to the center of their world, Krishna. Placing Krishna in the center of all of our relationships brings love and harmony to our other relationships. The only competition is how to serve better. Because the goal is to please Krishna, the devotees become enlivened and happy when another devotee excels in service. When Rupa Goswami was challenged to a debate by a prominent scholar, he didn't feel the need to prove himself, nor did he see any spiritual benefit in defeating the intellectual. So Rupa Goswami signed a paper saying he had been defeated by that pundit. Later, Rupa Goswami's disciple, Jiva Goswami, took it upon himself to debate with the scholar to establish the glories of his guru. Although Jiva Goswami soundly defeated the pundit, Rupa Goswami wasn't pleased that Rupa Goswami had wasted his time debating with this person for some external prestige. In marriage, we are well advised to pick our battles. If our sense of self is strong, we don't need to establish our point of view just to be right. We can look to harmonize the differences so we can peacefully move on with the more important things of our life. So maybe, what do you think, Tara? What's our time?
Sorry, I was muted. We have 25 minutes left, so
maybe let them know that you're going to start bringing them back in. It'll take a minute to have them all come back in.
okay. So should the host just lets them in? Is that how it works?
Yeah,
Yes.
she'll just end the big breakout group.
So I can just close all rooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll take 1 minute from the time you do that.
Okay.
Okay. That's a really lovely book.
Thank you. Yes, and I hope everybody will. It's on Amazon, you can get it in a Kindle form, and it's a quick read. So hopefully everyone can add it to their reading list.
My reading list has really grown since this retreat started. But I'm really looking forward to your books because I'm studying industrial psychology, so I'm all about the mind and then trying to incorporate these principles into people's lives. So I think I'll really enjoy it.
Wonderful, yeah, it'll be. I'm sure you'll enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. And I think someone posted all of the links on our chat, so everyone will be able to go and download
Oh,
them.
perfect. Good.
Yeah.
So everybody should start popping back on here very soon. It's kind of fun to watch too.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're back.
We hope they'll start popping back on pretty soon. Otherwise, it won't be like that.
Oh, well, look, we have over 100 already. That was quick.
Wonderful. So anybody want to share their experience of being in the groups, the breakout groups, what that was like for you, and maybe share your plan?
If anyone wants to share, you guys can use the option of raising your hand. So you just click on participants and then go to your name, and then you'll be able to raise your hand, and then we will unmute you.
Tiffany Cooper has her hand up. I see.
Cool. Okay, I've just unmuted Tiffany.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a beautiful class. And it's funny, we were literally talking about what you just asked when the breakout groups ended. We were just saying how lovely it is to get to meet devotees and associate with them, you know, from other countries, and also expressing that we hope we get to see more of this even after sheltering in place ends. Because it's so nice to have access to so many more classes and to be in breakout groups and get to talk to others. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now we have Preeti. Right on, next one on there.
Yes, Mataji.
There we go.
Yes, you can talk.
Yeah, she's still muted.
Oh,
Okay, now
Okay,
she's good.
now?
Yeah, she's good.
Okay, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. So for me, I think this breakout session was really nice. I think I learned something new from, that we could even do something like this on Zoom. And it was wonderful listening to the realization of all the Matajis in the breakout group. We learned a lot from each other. I think there was, nothing on the review slide that you shared with us, I wish I could follow everything. Nothing on that was, something that could be left out. But my realization is that if I can take even one of that and follow through it in my life, I think I will be a much happier person. Thank you so much for sharing all those realizations in the review slide. Thank you, Mother.
Thank you for your sharing. And then we have Vandana. Who's next? Sure.
okay, cool. I just unmuted her.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Could I please, I actually joined a bit late in the session. I'm really sorry I couldn't join earlier, but I was missing it out. But I'm so much grateful for whatever I heard, and I really feel bad that I missed out the earlier one. I'm going to go through the recording whenever I can. It was a wonderful meeting you all and listening to such beautiful things from you, learning actually, which was so nice. You made us introspect and look at different aspects, especially humility, which is so important in our devotional practice. And the breakup group thing I have experienced for the first time today, and I was hesitant in doing it. I didn't know what's happening, and then maybe if I get stuck somewhere, not very good at these gadgets, but then it somehow happened, and it was really nice, a good experience. We shared our thoughts in the group, and it was really nice to have listened to their inputs in this regard. And I'm really not clear with what exactly we are supposed to tell after discussion. Do we have to discuss what all we planned, or like something?
Yeah, just to share the plan, the 30-day.
Yes, so we have quite a lot of plans, like first of all, expressing gratitude to the devotees whom we associate, to our Shiksha Gurus, to our acharyas, which is very, very important, with a humble, humble heart, sincerely and honestly. And then looking at positive points or talents of others and truly appreciating them with our heart and trying to imbibe those good qualities in our practice of devotional service, which is very important. Rather than having an envious outlook or something, need to really appreciate it humbly and sincerely. That's the word, honestly. And then also introspecting our thoughts, our actions, and our words, keeping a guard like on ourselves and checking out that we are doing the right thing. We are not doing something which is detrimental to our devotional service. Listening to others, a very important thing. Being submissive, one of my group members suggested that, which is a very good point, being submissive. And yeah, these are some of the points. Though there are so many, but yeah, these are some of the points. Thank you so much for engaging in this beautiful thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandana. I think I can probably unmute people here from my end too. I know Devaki. I'm going to unmute her. Devaki? Oh. There she goes. I think. No, still didn't get her muted. Keeps going.
Oh, maybe just click once.
Okay. So go ahead, Devaki.
Okay. Hi, Krishna, everyone. Thank you, Mother Archana Siddhi, for your seminar. So we, there was a little bit of a lag with the person that was in the group with us. So me and my mom just did it together because we were both watching the seminar. And the one thing, I put a couple things down, but me and my mom both wanted to work on the fault finding with the rubber band. That really struck us both. And so that's the one thing that we both want to work on. Doing it together, we can help remind each other. But thank you so much for giving so many practical tips of like actually little things we can do. I also put the drop of humility journal down and speech, because I've been noticing that I need to work on speech. So that's also a good one for me. So yeah, we're both really grateful. I'm not sure if my mom wanted to share anything, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Devaki. Chintamani, you want to share anything?
Yeah.
Jai Hare Krishna, thank you for this beautiful seminar. It's so practical. It's grounded in scriptures and very practical. So Devaki and I did have similar about putting the rubber band on index cards and have questions. Is it true what I'm going to say? Is it kind and is it beneficial? So in whatever, and it can help me read the card. And then because I'll have the rubber band, I can kind of keep myself on track with that. And then researching more in the scriptures on the topic of humility, and then developing specific prayers to Krishna to help.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much. And I can check in with you, both of you, to ask if you're doing it.
Uh-oh.
So I think we should probably save a few minutes for questions. We have 15 minutes left, so I think we'll ask for questions now and see where that goes.
Cool. I have one question here. How do we know when we are trying to see the good in others versus calling danger and destructive energy and behavior into our...
Okay, you broke up at the very end there, so I didn't hear it.
Okay, let me repeat it. So how do we know when we're trying to see the good in others versus calling danger and destructive energy and behavior into our lives?
Not sure I really understand that question.
I think it's like, you know, perhaps sometimes we try to see the good in like a very bad person, if I can say, like someone who's maybe misusing you, mistreating you, perhaps even abusing you. So then how much must we tolerate at the detriment of ourselves?
Okay. Yes. Good question. And I think I addressed it a little bit in one of the slides, that we don't tolerate abusive behavior. We can forgive abusive behavior, and we can understand that generally abusive behavior is coming from a person that's grown up in an abusive environment, and they have a lot of things that that they need to address in their own lives and counseling and whatnot. So it's like the saying, you hate the sin but not the sinner. So we can always see some good in everyone, because we're not the body, we're not the mind. And so ultimately everyone's a pure soul. So seeing the potential of somebody, and I guess like the idea of there isn't anything that anybody's ever done that I couldn't conceive of that I possibly could have done myself in a previous lifetime or could have the ability to do. So that gives us a sense of compassion towards people. But when somebody is behaving badly, we need to set boundaries where some people we can't have them in our lives if they're misbehaving in a way that's hurting us or hurting other people in our lives. And we just have to be very strong about, not allowing them into our space, but we can still have goodwill and compassion for them.
Cool, thank you so much. We just have some questions on what is the name of your website?
VaishnavFamilyResources.org.
Okay, cool. And then someone else asked if we can get your slides.
Chintamani, she's up there. What do you think about giving out slides? She's in the Grass Division team also. What are your thoughts about that? We'll put, you know what? We're going to put some of this up on the website. So I think the things that we want to be out there, we'll have available on the website. And plus it's going to be on YouTube also. So there'll be access to seeing this again on the YouTube.
Okay, great. Another one is, how does one practice humility at work where people will abuse it?
So how do you practice humility at work where people will abuse it? So I think maybe there's some confusion about what humility is. We can look again at humility doesn't mean low self-esteem. It doesn't mean just Jai Prabhu, whatever you want me to do, Prabhu kind of attitude. But humility means that we have the confidence that how to serve, and we have confidence in ourselves and Krishna. We don't put ourselves in situations where we are going to be abused. We stand up for ourselves. That doesn't mean to stand up for yourself is humility. If, take care of ourselves. I know when I was a new devotee, I had that kind of confusion that I thought everybody, I had to, whatever anyone asked me, I had to say yes, I would do it. And we had examples of devotees doing things like being completely, exhausted, and somebody asked them to go and drive and pick somebody up from the airport, and they would say, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this," and they would get in a car and they would get in a car accident. So that's not humility. We have to understand ourselves and know what our limitations are. That's part of humility, and see that our bodies and our minds are Krishna's instruments and vehicles for serving. And if we can't do something, or something's beyond what we should be doing, it's then we have to be able to again set boundaries. Healthy boundaries is part of humility.
So there's two questions that I feel is like a bit related. So the one asks how to overcome low self-esteem problems, and the next person asks any tips on practicing self-forgiveness to help the process of developing humility.
Yeah, so low self-esteem. Yeah, that's, I think, in the society that we live in now, there's some estimate that 2 out of 3 people have unhealthy low self-esteem. So that's a pretty high number of people. If everybody on this call looked to the right and looked to the left, they would think, okay, out of the 3 of us, 2 of us here suffer from low self-esteem. So it's epidemic, actually. And why is that? Because the whole society that we grow up in, like, they followed little children around when they, parents with little children, and they said that, they did, recording them throughout their days for like a week in this one study, and they found that parents used the word, told their kids not to do things and gave them criticizing, statements 7 times to 1 positive time. So there was a 7 to 1 equation there going on. And so kids are growing up in an environment where don't touch that, no, you're bad, and they're hearing all of these things. So we're being programmed to think of ourselves in a certain way. So it's part of a journey. It's a whole journey of recognizing that, you have this programming going on, just like with what we did today with the anti-humility software. We have this other we have all kinds of software programs running. And so this low self-esteem software program is running just as well. So sometimes we need to get psychological help for that. There's lots of, women's groups are wonderful to join a women's group if, especially if it's a devotees. We used to have a lot of devotee women's groups. That was a big thing back in the 90s, I think. And I can say that was a wonderful way to address low self-esteem women, being able to be with women and support women and give each other positive affirmations and validations for their existence on the planet. And so yeah, it's a big topic. And there's a lot of good books out there too on developing healthy self-esteem. So just like this program, we're showing that there's practical things you can do to change your software, and with humility, you can certainly do the same thing with self-esteem. So that would be a short answer to a huge, long, we could do days of seminars on that one.
Yeah, I think Mahatma Prabhu did like 14 different lectures just on this one topic, so it's really extensive.
Yes, unlimited almost.
So a few people are asking about kids. So they're saying that kids have big egos and that it's difficult to understand them, and they want to know how they can help children or devotees attitudes that they may present to you while still being humble while teaching them.
So I could say, being a teacher, look at Srila Prabhupada. He could be very, very strong with his disciples. If any of you watch the memories interviews there, there's some amazing stories of Prabhupada. As a teacher, he knew when to be hard, he knew when to be soft. So kids, they need love and they need limits. You need both things. So humility doesn't mean that, again, that we take this soft, walk all over me attitude with children. They need the limits, and we're doing them a disservice if we don't give that to them, because they're learning. They're testing. They're testing constantly to see, how far can I go with this before I'm gonna, get some kind of repercussion or something. And so if we're really not doing our service as a parent, if we're not, setting those limits, but with love.
Cool, thank you for that. There's also a few further questions on this topic of abusive relationships. So one is asking, how much should we tolerate a Vaishnav who uses abusive language and behavior? And another was saying that in their relationship, they tried many different ways through humility to change things. And so they're wondering, should they just become detached in the relationship but carry on and not let it affect them?
I'm going to be really careful about answering that question on a forum, because these things are so individual, and you really need to hear everything about the situation from both parties and understand the psychology of the couples that you're dealing with. So I'm not going to give an answer to that on here. I would say that professional help would be definitely recommended. And yes, there's a limit of what a person should accept as in a relationship and still remain in the relationship. But there's so many factors that have to be looked at. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a very, very difficult topic. Okay, cool. I just got another question here. Please, can you elaborate more on saying no in devotional service? It seems it requires maturity and honesty. How do we navigate being able to say no, setting boundaries to self-protect, for self-care, etc. in devotional service?
Yeah. Well, just asking the question is healthy, that they have some understanding that there's a need for it. So congratulations on that, because that takes time to get there. Find older Vaishnavas that you trust and that have been through the years of experience, and attach yourself to to people you really trust and that can give you good advice, because it is hard when you're a younger devotee and so much we want to please. And if certain personality types are even more prone to wanting to please and will do things that are actually harmful. I mean, I certainly, if anybody knows the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 2, and that's the type that really has a hard time saying no and wants to make everyone happy. And so that's been a lot of my work over the years. And I'm still sometimes, people ask me to do things that I have a hard time saying no to. But yeah, find good association, older Vaishnavas, or even peers that you see are really able to have stand up for themselves and make good choices. And yeah, looking at what are the reasons that it's hard for me to say no. Is it a personality trait in myself that I could need to work on? The Enneagram is a really helpful tool. I recommend that. A lot of devotees I know are studying it and learning it, and it gives a lot of information about understanding what our different conditioned traps are for our type, and the key to get out of that, along with practicing devotional service. So especially through Anartha-nivritti, these other tools can be very, very useful. And once we get to firm nishta in devotional service, then we've got it. It's all downhill from there. We don't, these kind of tools we'll have it. It will be, it's in us. It'll be there. So.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I think we're probably out of time.
Yeah, if you want, I could ask one more very sweet question.
Oh, sweet question. Yes, we can end on a very sweet question.
Yeah, I was trying to save it for last. So the person says that we see that humility in the bhajans of our acharyas. What's the process of going deeper into bhajans?
Go deeper into your japa and associate with advanced Vaishnavas and continue to sing those bhajans. That's the way in, is through through the japa and through our association. That will take you deeper. And it's grace. It's coming from grace. So be patient. It will come.
Cool. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We really, really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your books and your wisdom and your lifelong devotion, I guess, because in our previous talk it was highlighted how many devotees, fall away. So it's just creating this deeper appreciation for me for all those who did stay. I can just imagine, how much Shakti there must be in, these powerful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So thank you so much for coming here and speaking to all of us and facilitating this beautiful class. And yeah, just thank you very much from the deepest parts of my heart.
And I do want to just say right before we end, the Grahasta Vision team it's a wonderful group of devotees, and I'm so grateful for all of them. And there's one member of our group who would be here today, but she's battling with cancer right now. And I think they did a special bhajan for her. And I just wanted to say that she's Krishna Nandini, a very dear friend, and the founder of the Grahasta Vision team back in the early 2000s. She is the powerhouse behind everything that we've done. She's pushed us. We're all kind of like, lagging behind there, but she never lets us lag too far behind. And she's an amazing, and enthusiastic, beautiful, loving soul that for all of us, just a moment of prayer to her in what she's currently going through. Krishna's there with her, and just send her all our love. So I just wanted to end on that note. And thank you so much, Tara, for your moderating and hosting. Very, very nice. These young devotees are amazing.
Thank you. It wasn't much at all. You did most of it. You made it very easy. Cool. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you.
Beautiful class.